Hare Krishna Prabhus, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. We're having a bit of a security issue in our neighborhood. Um, in fact, well, we've been noticing cars driving in odd ways, and then there's a house where people seem to be kind of camping out in a very slovenly manner. So we're suspecting drugs. Anyway, I was coming home the other night. I go down to a lake and finish my rounds there. And as it happened, I was coming home just after it was dark. I had my headlights on, and as I was about to make the turn, the final turn into the road that I live on, I could just barely see that there appeared to be a truck or a car in my lane. And so I was on alert, and I stopped well before the car. It was basically in the wrong lane. It was facing towards me, and it had its hood up. And my senses immediately went into alert, because why was the car facing the wrong direction? And this was an odd place because the road's fairly narrow, and that it drops off. It has an embankment on either side that goes down at least 4 feet into a ditch with water. So what we're on was essentially a bridge, and I'm basically being blocked without going around in a very narrow place from passing this car. So, my senses were on high alert. Is this some kind of ambush? But, why would somebody want to ambush me? So I happened to think, well, I've got my gun with me. I happened to have it strapped on because I had been out in the wilderness walking. And fortunately, Krishna let me remember his feet. And I thought of the symbol on his feet, the symbol of the Akash. And I just wanted to have a feeling of alertness and fearlessness. And so I opened the door and went out, and immediately a woman gets out of the car, which actually put my alert level higher, because I thought, well, if this really was an ambush, they probably use either a very young person or a woman. And anyway, she tells me that she's waiting for somebody to jumpstart her car. To make a long story short, nothing happened. It was odd in several different ways, but I felt more that it was Krishna giving me a dry run for some real life things, because there were so many elements to the situation that were, quite unique and could have been alarming and could have caused, I could have just backed away and gone around. Would have been a long drive, but I could have avoided the experience. But it was interesting because it kind of alerted to me to a kind of an ongoing drug problem in one house in our neighborhood. And it's interesting because this particular house, the owner has asked me to keep an eye on it. She has a grandson living there, and the grandson has been, it's been looking more and more like it's turning into a drug flop place where a lot of people are kind of camping out in RVs. And so anyway, yesterday I decided to pay them a visit and see what's happening. And they're quite interested in resolving the problem that they're having, which is like maybe he's too nice and he lets people be there, and now you can't get rid of him. So anyway, it'll be interesting to see where this particular event how this resolves itself. I'm going to be pursuing some options, but along those lines, I was thinking about when you're faced with danger, do you stand your ground? Like I did. I didn't turn around. I went ahead and confronted this obstacle in front of me. Or do you, sometimes it's wiser to just turn around, and how do you know which one to do? And I was reflecting on it recently, was reading the story of Maharaj Ambrish and Durvasa Muni. We know the story where Maharaj Ambrish, he had been performing an austerity. He had been fasting, and to make his fast perfect, he needed to break it within a given time frame. And right at that time, Durvasa Muni, who is a great Brahmin, very powerful mystic yogi, turns up and wants to have, some prasadam with him. So, but he had to wait until he did his oblations at the river, and then the time was getting short. So Maharaj Ambrish, he consulted the Brahmins, and they said, we don't know what to do. It's like, if you eat something before he comes back, that's a breach of etiquette. And if you don't eat, then your sacrifice isn't perfect. So Ambrish made the decision himself that he'd drink a little bit of water, which was kind of the gray area between eating something or not. But when Durvasa Muni came back, And by his mystic abilities, he could sense that Ambarish Maharaj had completed his austerities. He was furious because I think he was trying to cause trouble or something. Anyway, he pulls his hair and he creates this demon, which was obviously in a very amped up mood, that looked, was being set to probably hurt Maharaj Ambarish. And Ambarish just stood there, just calmly waiting. Well, if Krishna wants me to die from this, so he didn't move. He was faced with danger, and he knew it was unreasonable. That it wasn't like he felt guilty about drinking some water because obviously there was nothing wrong with that. But contrarily, as Prabhupada points out this is in the 9th canto of the Bhagavatam, when Durvasa Muni sees the danger coming at him, so the demon disappears, and all of a sudden the Sudarshan Chakra, Krishna's own weapon, is headed towards Durvasa Muni, and he very wisely decided to split. He fled the situation. The difference between the consciousness of the two, of course, Ambarish Maharaj was a devotee, and he was just looking at pleasing Krishna. So he had nothing to be afraid of at all, because it's like whatever happened, it's fine. If he loses that body and goes on to his next one, he was nirpekshaya, indifferent. So, but Durvasa Muni, on the other hand, had to run, all over the place. And finally, he went to Lord Vishnu, and Vishnu said, "Well, you better beg forgiveness from Ambarish Maharaj." So he was saved in that way, just to finish the story. But from our own lives, or if people are looking to, well, should I leave my situation? Should I flee? Or should I stay and just shelter in place? Generally speaking, if you've been following Srila Prabhupada's instructions, like all of his instructions, not just, chanting your rounds and following, but actually being in the missionary spirit and following his instructions according to lifestyle. And I'm talking about the way our consciousness was when Prabhupada was still on the planet. The missionary spirit that, our goal is to try to get people to remember Krishna and to give this knowledge out. And that's what's important. So if you've been doing that, then, it's very possible that you're already in a situation in which you will be able to be a strong continuation of your activities, because it'll just be a continuation. So you'd be in a situation like Durvasa Muni. However, if you've been living like the way I used to live before we started living on this farm project, and you're paying your bills and you're buying your food at the grocery stores and things like that, you haven't really been following Srila Prabhupada's instructions. So really, for that, one time maybe you did, but at this point, if you're living in a urban or semi-urban setting and you haven't been producing most of your necessities, yeah, I think it might be time to do like Durvasa Muni and maybe, beg for some help from some devotees who do have this, the situation set up. I don't know a whole lot of projects. Our project, we will be making open for refugees if they can provide a trailer or something. Eventually, when things cool down, we'll be able to build houses out of the materials, in the area. And there's plenty of building materials that are just growing in nature. But, until then, people would have to, because we don't have living facilities here to offer people. But anyway, it's been over 8 minutes, but that's my video for today. If you have any questions, I've really been enjoying the feedback I've been getting. And I want to post this incredible email I got from a devotee in Italy about wearing face masks. Really alarming. Anyway, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.